Joining me now is John Viveiros, host of Hot Take Hockey. John, thanks as always for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Roger.
Okay, so Game 7, it's a winner-take-all. Who's got the upper hand going into this game right now?
Well, Roger, everything you just said. The Edmonton Oilers feeling all the momentum, feeling the shift in the Stanley Cup Final. The Panthers winning the first three, the Oilers winning the last three. And, I mean, the Oilers just feel everything across the board right now. Of course, it's been Connor McDavid in the Stanley Cup Final and in the playoffs. 11 points in this Cup Final, 42 points in the playoffs. But they've got contribution across the board. Stuart Skinner's been almost perfect in the last 3 games. And in games 4 through 7 in the playoffs, he's had a better record than the previous 3. So I think when you look across the board, Leon Draisaitl stepped up last game with points. Zach Hyman leading the playoffs with 16 goals, and contributions from Ryan McLeod, Warren Foegele, Corey Perry with goals in this Cup Final. So Edmonton, who have kind of been labeled in the past as a top-heavy team with just Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, are getting the full contribution from their whole lineup. And Evan Bouchard, who's had a legendary defense run, beating guys like a Paul Coffey for records and points. So I think when you're looking at the Oilers, they feel themselves across the board right now and feeling confident. The Florida Panthers, this is going to be a huge judgment day, a huge big game, and led by Paul Maurice, who you've seen the shift in their press conferences from Paul Maurice and Matthew Tkachuk, the confidence after game 3 and 4 versus the uncertainty going into game 7. So I do think it's all Edmonton right now, Roger, and Florida's got a lot of thinking to do prior to tomorrow night's game 7.
What do they have to do, for Florida? Because the pressure's on. They don't want to be the team that ends an 84-game streak where no one has come back from 3 down to win the Cup. What do they have to do to win?
84 years, crazy. Yeah, you're going back to the 42 Toronto Maple Leafs. I think for the Florida Panthers, there's a lot to actually look at outside of the result here in the Cup Final. I mean, you're at home. I think that's kind of being forgotten here, that while the Edmonton crowd was crazy game 6, they're going back to the Panthers crowd that was actually pretty quiet in game 5. And I think that's going to make a huge difference here. What kind of Florida crowd can show up? And I know in the past, it's always kind of criticized what kind of Florida crowd, fans down south, what can they bring as a hockey market? But you also have, as players, you have Sam Reinhart, who needs to earn a contract this summer. Top defenseman Brandon Montour, who needs to earn a contract this summer. So these guys, this is a time to show other teams. If you want to make big money this offseason, whether you want to look at this as a team effort, individuals need to step up for the Florida Panthers here, because Stuart Skinner, practically 5 goals against, where a lot of those goals were kind of individual efforts, specifically from Alexander Barkov last game. So we're talking about the depth stepping up for Edmonton. Florida's been regarded as a very deep team throughout the playoffs, and we just haven't seen that in this Stanley Cup Final outside of Evan Rodriguez, who ironically has 4 goals and leading the goals here. So I do think that Florida needs to really look at themselves in the mirror for a lot of individual players, specifically a Matthew Tkachuk, whose uncertainty has been made clear the last 2 press conferences. So to answer your question, Roger, Edmonton's depth stepped up. I think it's time for Florida to really hone into their home crowd and get some depth scoring, because Stuart Skinner's been on his game.
Okay, and just being there, like they were there last year, does that help them all going into this game?
I think it helps them, Roger, but I think it also just kind of shows the whole big picture here. Back-to-back Stanley Cup Final appearances. They were up 3-0 in this series in the Stanley Cup Finals. So I really think it's been an ultimate gut punch towards the Florida Panthers. But if Paul Maurice can settle his team down and realize we've been here before, and specifically last year, when you look at them against the Boston Bruins, yeah, they came back down from 3-1, but they were in a Game 7 in a harder environment at TD Garden in Boston. They've been in tougher environments than this. They're at home. They're in front of their Florida fans. I think while the momentum is completely shifted here, if they can really try to, this is more of a mental thing than anything. Okay. If they can really try to reset here and realize you're in front of your home crowd, this is just one game, one winner takes all, versus what's happened in the previous 6 games. I think that's the ultimate way to go about it, because at this point, it's been all Edmonton on the ice for the last 3.
All right, so before we go, prediction.
Roger, I'm riding the momentum. Momentum's the scary thing in sports. Edmonton Oilers historic win, Game 7, Monday night.
All right, you heard it right here. John, thanks as always, sir.
Thanks, Roger.
John Viveiros is the host of Hot Take Hockey.